And so as I was going through those 20 years, I'll tell you a little bit about what I did. I worked primarily, I went to school to study psychology. And to be honest with you, it was really trying to figure out why my life was so screwed up. And I was able to get through it barely. Did some internships, worked in a mental health center with folks with mental health issues, worked in a group home. Had a lot of experience working with folks with disabilities because I was trying to understand people. I was trying to understand how people think, why they do, and make the choices they make, so I could better understand why I made some of the choices that led to almost my demise. And also the other thing is I joined the military. I knew that I needed order in my life. I needed to have a sense of authority because I didn't have that. And that was amazing for me. I was in the military for 8 years and ended up getting out as a first lieutenant, studied the area of chemical, so I was a chemical officer, got to experience what that was like, developed a little bit of discipline in my life, which we all need. And then I began to work in the field, like I said, I moved to New York, and I worked for an organization that worked with folks with developmental disabilities. And it was at that time I had the opportunity to go into prisons, into jails, and was appointed a chaplain up in New York, up in Schenectady. And so I got to work with inmates, both male and female. And these are people who had made similar choices as I had made, but unfortunately the consequences were much more severe for them. Many of the people had been murderers, drugs, you name it. And I was in there trying to minister to them, but at the same time, minister to myself. I'm sharing some of this for you and with you because on my journey, God began to reveal what His purpose was for me. I didn't fully understand it, but I knew that in my search, in my quest to try to figure out what I was to do, it had a lot to do with helping other people figure out what they were to do. And in that quest and working for several years as a chaplain, I got to minister to so many different people. It was truly a blessing for me. And in that opportunity, I then felt a calling that I needed to further my studies, because I had been talking with different inmates of different faiths, different beliefs, challenging my own belief system. And I am a individual that loves to learn, loves to grow. And I'm what I would call a pursuer of truth. You know, the Bible talks about you shall know the truth and it shall set you free. And so I then furthered my education and came down to North Carolina. And when I came down to North Carolina, I attended a seminary to study apologetics, which is a combination of philosophy and studying of the religious faiths and how to defend the faith so that you can effectively help other people. And it's really combining the psychological component that I went to school for, combining the philosophical, and combining the ability to help people through some of the issues. A lot of the issues we struggle with the choices we make, depending on what our upbringing affects our emotions, affects our psyche, affects our soul. And I have a big desire. One of the gifts that I have, I think because of all that I went through, is that I'm an empath. Very sensitive. I care about people. I love to be able to help people. I love to help see them work through some of the challenges that they face. And so I went to seminary and studied apologetics, and I continued to further my vocational training, per se, in the field of working with folks with developmental disability, mental health. But really I thought, I'm called to be a missionary. I'm going to go to another country and I'm going to help people. And it was interesting because when I was going through that, I had an idea of what I thought God wanted me to do. And God is so funny. He will let us go in the path that we've set forth until we realize, oh, I just walked into a wall. And it's not that I wasn't doing great things. I was doing very good things. I was trying to help a lot of people. But Paul thought, oh, this is Paul being the people pleaser. This is what God wants me to do. He wants me to be a missionary. He wants me to go and do these wonderful things. And that's a great thing. But it was a wake-up call for me. And I'm going to tell you what happened. I did not share a little bit about this, but when I was in New York, I had met a young lady, fell in love, and I moved down to North Carolina with her to attend seminary. Unfortunately, some of the issues that I struggled with from childhood carried into my marriage, and it was a short-lived marriage. She ended up leaving me, unfortunately, for another man, and I was left newlywed just after a year, and also going to seminary and kind of like, okay, I was going to seminary in a particular denomination that did not favor a divorce. And so I was at a crossroads. And I sought God's face and I asked him, I said, what do you want me to do? I feel like I've lost my way again. I feel like I'm heading in this direction that you had me to go. And here I am looking at a divorce, looking at not continuing in seminary in the denomination that I chose. And I sought a gentleman that somebody had recommended to do, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it was a life encounter. And basically what he had me do over the weekend, we had paper, and to this day I still do this, I call it visionary. He had me go through my life from birth until the present moment and actually illustrate all the things that I had done, the choices that I had made. And in doing that, he was able to help me see a pattern. A lot of times we miss the patterns because we don't look at them. We subconsciously, unconsciously do things that we've always done. But when you're able to look at things from a pattern perspective, you can see that God's hand in my situation was at work. And when I looked at all that had happened, especially as I became an adult, my desire to want to work with people with disabilities. And it's not that I had a child or grew up with a disability, but that was what God had called me to do. Unconsciously, whatever you want to do, I just made a choice because I needed a job. But everything I had done as an adult was working with folks with disability. And I falsely thought, oh, serving God means going to the mission field or working in the church. And God opened my eyes that the giftedness, the purpose he put within me was not necessarily that. I had too narrow of a perspective of who God was and what he was going to do. And I re-diverted my focus and to pour in with passion, working with folks with disability. And so I continued to work in the field, had the opportunity in 2010, and I'm going a little fast forward, but I'm going to share what happened before then. But I ended up starting my own company called Covenant Case Management Services in 2010. It's doing great. We are all over North Carolina serving folks with disabilities in the way of helping them with support employment, helping them with residential, advocacy, therapies. We do a lot. And the reason that the thing that drives me is in the sense of helping people discover their purpose. I wanted to give people with disabilities the opportunity to have that same desire and be able to answer that question. What is my purpose? What is my calling? And so I've actively worked with many of our individuals and given them a sense of purpose. One of the day programs we have is called the Dream Center. And I named it that because God gives each of us a dream. And the difference between a dream and the manifestation of that dream becoming reality really comes down to one thing for me, and it's belief. Do we believe strongly enough in that dream to be able to act on that? Because that is what faith is. When Christ came, that he said, whoever believes in me will have salvation. And I know that's hard for us to understand, but when you have a faith and a belief in something, your hands, your feet, everything about you will move in that direction. And when you have a dream that is inspired by God to make a difference, and I'm going to give you several examples that you will begin to say, yes, that's exactly. Mother Teresa had a dream to be able to feed and take care of the folks in Calcutta who were dying on the streets. Martin Luther King had a dream. We all know that famous I have a dream speech for equality for people of different races. We've got enough people in our past history and even present moment to inspire us. And we look upon them and we admire them. But how are they any different than us? When we recognize that every one of us has a calling and a purpose given to us by the Creator to do great and wonderful things. Can we be a Mother Teresa? Sure. Can we be a Martin Luther? Sure. But their calling was specific to them. God has given a calling on your life. For me, my calling, I do a lot of things because I love to do a lot of things. I love to help a lot of people, but it really comes down to this. My purpose is to help people find their purpose. Because I firmly believe if each and every one of us is doing and living out our purpose, we will have a better world. Because you're so in line, and the word alignment, I think about when you're in like an orchestra, And I don't know if you've ever been to a concert prior to starting. A lot of times they'll do the warm-up. So you have individuals within the orchestra playing their instruments, and it sounds so chaotic. But once the concert begins, what you hear is absolutely beautiful. It harmonizes. Each person in their uniqueness, in their calling, to begin to do exactly what they're called to do, so neatly fits together with the person in the orchestra that is next to them. So you hear that beautiful music. Well, I believe that's God's intent for us. If we respond to His calling, His purpose, and we allow Him to show and reveal to us what that is, and we get in line with our purpose in regards to doing that and serving other people, and other people do the same thing, we will find relationships not only within our own home, but within our own community. And so my purpose is to help people discover their purpose. So the purpose of this show, and I'll give you a little bit how it's going to work. I wanted to use the first time to introduce myself so you would know and understand, and I've got so much more to share. But for you to understand that every one of us is on a journey. We have a start date and we have an end date. We don't know that end date. And we want to make sure by the time we get to that end date and our eyes close for the last time, and those that believe and when we meet our Maker, the very things that we want to hear is, well done, thou good and faithful servant. What does that mean? Well, I want to tell you, for me, that means that I fulfill the purpose He created me for. And I've served Him well by serving other people well. And the driving force between serving other people well is always love, compassion, mercy, kindness. And that's the kind of life that I want to live. And I'm committed and devoted to helping other people find their purpose. We do have to take a quick break, but we will be right back after these few messages.